3 weeks had passed since Kyle and Lisa started working on the world ship. Kyle looked much older now. His beard had grown wild and messy. His eyes were red from lack of sleep. He could not remember the last time he had slept more than a few hours. But the work was showing results. The Eternal Sovereign was getting better. Kyle floated in the massive engineering bay while he checked the computer readouts. He spoke into his radio and told Lisa that the forward antimatter containment was becoming stable. The neural pathways in sections 12 through 40 were reconnecting with each other. He said it was like watching a damaged brain heal itself piece by piece. Lisa floated next to him. She looked just as tired as Kyle, but she refused to give up. They had called for help from other people. Lisa's brother Danny had come from a nearby station. An engineer named Sophie Grant had also joined them. Now 4 humans were working inside this giant ship. They were very small compared to the world ship, but slowly they were making real progress. The world ship had become easier to communicate with as its systems recovered. It shared memories of its past in small pieces. Kyle and the others could see mental images of the Valdrine Empire when it was powerful and successful. The Eternal Sovereign had been a mobile research station. It carried thousands of scientists and their families through deep space to study distant stars and planets. When the Valdrine Empire fell because of a terrible plague, the ship tried to go home. But when it arrived, all the Valdrine worlds were empty and dead. Everyone was gone. The ship had wandered through space for thousands of years. Its crew members died one by one from old age. Finally, only the ship itself remained. It was too stubborn or too sad to shut down completely and die. During a rest period, the world ship spoke to them in their minds. It said it was not meant to be alone. The Valdrine had built their world ships to carry life and protect it. Without a purpose, what was it? Just a dead thing floating in space? Kyle put his hand on the wall. He could feel warmth through his glove. He told the ship that it was still here and still existing. That had to count for something. The ship did not respond, but Kyle felt it appreciated his words. Their work did not go unnoticed by others. The Crethon Dominion was a military power that controlled many star systems. They were not known for being subtle or gentle. Their warships arrived without any warning. They dropped out of faster-than-light travel in a formation that showed clear military discipline and threat. 8 heavy cruisers and 2 battleships surrounded the Eternal Sovereign. All their weapons were powered up and ready to fire. Their targeting systems locked onto the world ship and the small human cargo ship. The commander of the lead Crethon ship was called War Leader Thrax. He broadcast a message on all radio frequencies. Thrax said that the human vessels were breaking Dominion salvage law. He claimed the ancient ship belonged to the Crethon by right of discovery. He ordered the humans to leave immediately or they would be destroyed. His voice was cold and confident. Lisa pulled herself over to the communication equipment they had set up. She sent back a message. She identified herself as Captain Lisa Bennett of the Celestial Horizon. She explained that they had received the world ship's distress signal 3 weeks ago. She said the ship was a living being, not just salvage. It had asked them for help. Thrax responded quickly. He said the opinions of lesser species like humans did not matter. He did not care what the humans thought. He gave them exactly 1 standard hour to evacuate the world ship and leave the area. Kyle looked at Lisa with worry in his eyes. He said they could not let the Crethon take the ship. They both knew what would happen. The Crethon would tear the world ship apart to steal its technology. They would kill it to study it. Lisa looked at their situation realistically. She said they were just 4 people in a small mining cargo ship. What could they possibly do against an entire battle fleet? They had no weapons. Their ship was designed to carry equipment, not fight wars. The answer came from the Eternal Sovereign itself. The ship's voice in their minds was stronger now. The repairs had given it more energy. The world ship said it was not helpless. It had been built for peaceful purposes, but the Valdrine were not stupid. They knew the galaxy could be dangerous. The ship had defense systems, but it needed more power and more time to activate them fully. Kyle asked how much time the ship needed. The world ship explained that if they could restore the main power core, it could protect everyone. But the work would be very dangerous. The containment fields around the power core had to be adjusted manually. Someone had to go inside the core chamber to do the work. The radiation levels in that chamber would be fatal to humans. Sophie Grant spoke up from her position in the lower decks of the world ship. She said they could survive if they worked fast enough. They had radiation suits that were designed for working near solar cores. If Kyle and Sophie took turns working in 15-minute shifts, they might survive long enough to finish the job. Lisa repeated the word, might. It was not a guarantee. They might die doing this. Kyle said he did not see another choice. They had to try. He told Danny to keep their cargo ship ready for emergency departure. If the plan failed, Danny and Lisa needed to escape and survive. Danny refused immediately. He said they were all in this together. Nobody was running away and leaving the others behind. The next 45 minutes were the longest and most terrifying of Kyle's entire life. The antimatter core chamber was like a cathedral made of deadly energy. He could see plasma streams through the containment fields. They looked like curtains of fire. Kyle and Sophie worked in desperate sprints. They had to recalibrate quantum locks and realign magnetic bottles. Their radiation suits screamed constant warnings at them. The suits told them they were dying slowly with every second they stayed inside. On the 15th minute of the third rotation, Kyle's hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold his tools. The Crethon deadline had passed. The enemy ships outside were charging their weapons. They were preparing to fire and destroy everything. Sophie's voice came over the radio. She was gasping for breath. She said the core alignment was complete. She was starting the power sequence right now. The Eternal Sovereign shuddered like a living thing waking up. Energy flooded through its systems for the first time in 6,000 years. Lights blazed to life across 200 kilometers of ship. The whole world ship glowed. Shields that could withstand the heat of a star's core snapped into existence around the hull. Ancient weapons that had been hidden for millennia emerged from concealed ports in the ship's surface. The world ship spoke simply. It thanked them. Then it said it would show them what the Valdrine had built their guardian ships to do. The Crethon were about to learn a very hard lesson about threatening ancient things. The small cargo ship called Celestial Horizon moved slowly through the empty space of the outer rim. Inside the cramped bridge, engineer Kyle Morrison sat at his station drinking coffee from a metal cup. He was checking the communication systems when something strange appeared on his screen. The readings made no sense at all. Kyle stared at the display for several seconds before he believed what he was seeing. Then he put down his coffee cup so fast that it floated away in the low gravity. He needed Captain Lisa Bennett to see this right away. Lisa walked over from her chair and looked at the screen. Her experienced eyes went wide with surprise. The signal on the display was huge and very old. It was using frequencies that nobody had used for thousands of years. According to the computer, this signal came from a time before humans even knew how to make fire. Lisa spoke in a quiet voice. She said this was a Sentinel-class world ship from the Valdrine Empire. The Valdrine had built these massive ships long ago, before their entire civilization disappeared from the galaxy. Most people thought these ships were just stories. Nobody expected to actually find one, but this was not just any signal. Kyle could tell that something was different about it. The signal felt alive somehow. It was not like a normal distress call from a broken machine. This felt like a living thing reaching out across space, asking for help with real desperation. Kyle touched the holographic controls and brought up more information. The world ship had been drifting alone through space for 6,000 years. All of its crew had died long ago, but somehow the ship itself was still awake and aware. It knew it was alone and it was calling out for anyone who could hear. Lisa looked at the data and then at Kyle. She said the ship was asking for help. Her voice was soft and thoughtful. The Celestial Horizon was just a small cargo ship. They carried mining equipment to colony planets. They had no reason to go looking for ancient alien ships. This was not their job at all, but both Lisa and Kyle felt something pulling at them. Humans had a natural instinct to help when someone called for aid. Even if that someone was a 6,000-year-old alien ship, the instinct was the same. They could not just ignore this call. Lisa made her decision. She told Kyle to set a course for the signal. They were going to see what they were dealing with. The choice felt right even though they both knew it might be dangerous. 3 days later, they arrived at the location. What they found took their breath away. The world ship called Eternal Sovereign appeared in front of them like a metal mountain, floating in the darkness. The ship was 200 kilometers long. Its surface was covered with scars from thousands of years of tiny meteor impacts and radiation damage. But even damaged, the ship was beautiful. Kyle could barely speak. He just whispered that it was the most amazing thing he had ever seen. Lisa nodded in agreement. Neither of them had ever imagined they would see something like this. Docking with the world ship was not possible using normal methods. The ship's docking ports were designed for alien species that no longer existed. The engineering was completely different from anything humans used. But the world ship seemed to understand they needed help. It opened a landing bay that had not been used in 6,000 years. The massive doors moved smoothly as if they had been oiled yesterday. Kyle and Lisa put on their spacesuits and took a small shuttle inside. The interior of the world ship was like walking through an ancient tomb filled with wonders. The corridors were wide enough to fly their entire cargo ship through. They saw chambers that could have held whole cities. Everywhere they looked, there was a soft blue glow coming from the walls. These were the ship's systems still working after all this time. They walked through the silence using magnetic boots to stay on the floor. Their helmet lights cut through the darkness. The ship's neural network was visible as glowing blue lines that ran through the walls like veins carrying blood. The whole ship seemed alive in a strange way. Then they heard something that made them both stop walking. It was not a sound in their radios. This was something they heard directly inside their minds. A voice that was ancient and tired spoke to them. It did not use words exactly. Instead, it sent them feelings and ideas that they could understand. The voice said it needed help. It said it was dying. Its creators were all gone. Its purpose had faded away. But it did not want to end. It wanted to keep existing. Kyle reached out and touched the wall with his gloved hand. He could feel a vibration through the metal. He spoke out loud and said they could hear the ship. He asked what it needed from them. The answer came like a flood of information pouring into their suit computers. The world ship sent them technical drawings and diagrams that showed what was wrong. The ship's main systems were failing one after another. The antimatter containment that powered the ship was getting weaker. The neural pathways that let the ship think were breaking down. It needed repairs that its automatic systems could not do anymore. Lisa looked at all the data and shook her head. She said this was beyond what they could do. They were talking about technology that humans barely understood. This world ship had been a mobile civilization. It could hold 1 million living beings inside it. How could 2 people from a small cargo ship possibly fix something this big and complex? But Kyle was already studying the technical drawings. His mind was working fast like it always did when he saw an engineering problem. He told Lisa that the basic principles were not that different from human technology. The Valdrine had used quantum-locked antimatter cores, but the fundamental mechanics were similar to the fusion drives that humans used. Everything was just scaled up to an enormous size. Lisa said Kyle was being insane. This was not a project they could handle. But Kyle pointed at the data on his screen. He reminded her that this was a working Valdrine world ship. Scientists who studied alien archaeology would give anything to see even a small piece of this technology. And the ship was asking them specifically for help. They had to at least try. Lisa looked around at the massive chamber they were standing in. She thought about what this could mean. Then she activated her communication link. She called their ship and told her first mate, Greg Palmer, to send down all their engineering equipment. She said to send everything they had. Greg's voice came back confused. He asked if she was sure about this. Lisa said yes. She told him to log this as a salvage operation. They had just found the biggest prize in the entire Outer Rim territory. What none of them knew was that far away, 200 light-years distant, another group had also detected the world ship's signal. The Crethon Dominion had heard the call, and they were coming with warships. War Leader Thrax watched his tactical display screen with growing worry. The ancient alien ship was coming to life in front of him. This was supposed to be a simple operation. His plan had been to intimidate the weak humans, take the valuable alien ship and go home with enough technology to earn a big promotion. Everything should have been easy. Instead, his sensors were showing warnings he had never seen before in his entire military career. The computer systems on his ship were trying to analyze the energy readings from the world ship. They could not make sense of what they were seeing. Thrax barked orders at his tactical officer. He demanded a status report immediately. He needed to know what was happening. The tactical officer looked at his screen with fear in his eyes. He reported that the world ship was powering up weapons. The energy signatures were completely off the scale. The computer was reading quantum displacement cannons and gravitational shear projectors. There was also something else that the computer could not even identify. The system had no name for it, Thrax growled in frustration. He said the world ship was just a research vessel. The Valdrine had been scientists, not warriors. They studied the universe peacefully. They should not have serious weapons. The science officer on Thrax's ship spoke up nervously. He corrected the war leader. He explained that the Valdrine were pragmatic people. They built their deep space vessels to survive anything the galaxy could throw at them. That included hostile encounters with dangerous species. The Valdrine had been peaceful but not defenseless. Thrax opened a communication channel to the humans. He told the human captain to convince her alien friend to stand down and surrender. He reminded them that the Crethon had enough firepower to crack open a moon. The old world ship was damaged from thousands of years in space. It could not possibly win a fight against fresh modern warships. Lisa Bennett's voice came back over the radio. Her tone was steady and cold. She said Thrax was right about one thing. The world ship was old. But she said he had forgotten something important about old things. They had survived everything that ever tried to kill them. That was why they were still here. Then the Eternal Sovereign spoke. It broadcast on frequencies that made the Crethon audio receptors hurt. The voice was no longer weak or pleading like when it first called for help. Now it was the voice of something that had crossed the entire galaxy. It had witnessed civilizations rise and fall, and it had decided it was tired of being threatened by young, aggressive species. The world ship said it had given the Crethon a chance to leave peacefully. They had chosen violence instead. Now they would learn a lesson. Some ancient things should not be awakened in anger. The world ship fired its weapons. Kyle watched from the observation deck as the battle began. He had seen weapons tests before when he worked at various stations. He had watched impressive displays of human military power. This was something completely different. This was beyond anything he had imagined possible. The quantum displacement cannons did not fire projectiles or energy beams like normal weapons. They simply removed space itself. Crethon shields flickered uselessly as sections of their ships stopped existing. Neat spherical holes appeared in armor and bulkheads. The matter just vanished. 3 Crethon cruisers went dead and powerless in the first few seconds. They were not destroyed, but they were completely neutralized. Their power cores and weapon systems had been precisely cut out. The gravitational shear projectors created localized tidal forces in space. One Crethon battleship tried to run away. It engaged its faster-than-light drive to escape. But the world ship twisted space around the fleeing ship. The battleship stretched like soft clay. Its metal hull bent in ways that metal should never bend. The crew inside experienced forces that turned the interior into an abstract nightmare. Then the Eternal Sovereign released the ship mercifully. The vessel was still intact but thoroughly disabled. Nobody inside could fight anymore. Sophie whispered that the world ship was playing with them. She sounded both horrified and amazed at the same time. She was right. Kyle could see it clearly. The world ship could have completely destroyed the entire Crethon fleet in just a few seconds if it wanted to. Instead, it was teaching them a lesson. It was demonstrating the enormous difference between their technology and the weapons of a civilization that had mastered space and time itself thousands of years. The remaining Crethon ships tried to fight back. Their plasma lances fired bright beams of superheated matter. Their missiles launched in waves, leaving trails of light. The display looked impressive and spectacular. But the Eternal Sovereign's shields absorbed everything without even flickering. The world ship had been built to travel through the empty void between galactic arms. It was designed to weather radiation storms and gravitational anomalies that would tear normal ships apart. Military weapons designed to fight other military vessels were barely an inconvenience to it. The world ship broadcast another message directly to war leader Thrax. It told him to give the order to withdraw his fleet. The world ship said it had no wish to kill his crews, but it would not tolerate any more threats to the humans who had answered its distress call. There was a long pause. The battle had stopped. Disabled Crethon ships drifted in space. Then the remaining functional ships began their retreat. They limped away slowly, towing their disabled vessels with tractor beams. Thrax sent one final transmission. His voice was tight with shame and humiliation. He said the Dominion would remember this day. The humans had made powerful enemies. They would regret their actions. Lisa muttered that humans had made powerful enemies the day they started exploring space and meeting other species. At least now they had a powerful friend to help them. The situation could have been much worse. As the last Crethon ship disappeared into faster-than-light travel, Kyle felt the world ship's presence in his mind. But it was different now. The desperate pleading was gone. Now the presence felt contemplative and thoughtful. The world ship said it had been built to protect and nurture life. That was its original purpose given by the Valdrine. For 6,000 years it had no purpose at all. It had drifted alone with nothing to protect. Now it understood. Humans were small and young and fragile compared to the ancient species, but they had answered when it called for help. They had worked themselves to the point of exhaustion to save its life. The Valdrine would have liked these humans very much. Danny asked what would happen now. The Crethon would not be the last ones who came looking for the world ship. Other species would hear about this. Some would want to study the ship. Others would want to destroy it. The danger was not over. The world ship agreed that more threats would come, but perhaps that was acceptable. Perhaps it had finally found a new purpose after all these empty years. Kyle felt something change in that moment. The world ship had been saved by humans, but humans had also gained something incredible. They had gained a guardian that was more powerful than anything else in the known galaxy. The relationship went both ways. Lisa pulled up a communication from Terran Federation headquarters. The human government had heard about the incident already. News traveled fast. They wanted answers. They wanted to know what was happening in the Outer Rim. Sophie pointed out that the world ship had just humiliated a major military power to protect a small human cargo ship. That meant something. It meant the Eternal Sovereign had chosen a side. The galaxy was about to become a much more complicated place. Humans had been a minor species before. They ran small colonies and trade routes. They tried to avoid conflict with the bigger powers. But now they had allied with something ancient and powerful. Everything had changed. Kyle looked out at the stars. He had been a simple engineer 3 weeks ago. He had worried about maintaining engine systems and shipping schedules. Now he was part of something that would change galactic history. The thought was both exciting and terrifying. The world ship spoke one more time. It said that for thousands of years it had protected nothing but itself. That was an empty, lonely existence. Now it could protect others again. It had humans to care for. Small, fragile humans who had shown it kindness when it was dying and alone. The Eternal Sovereign would not forget that kindness, and the galaxy would learn what it meant to threaten those under its protection. The news spread through the galaxy very quickly. Everyone heard the story. A small human crew had awakened an ancient Valdrine world ship. They had made it work again. Then they used it to embarrass one of the major military powers in the galaxy. The Crethon Dominion had been humiliated in battle. Different species had very different reactions to this news. The Galactic Commerce League sent a formal letter. They asked if the Eternal Sovereign was available for hire as a transport vessel. They offered good money. The Zelthani Collective made a different offer. They wanted to pay an enormous sum just to study the ship's ancient technology. The Crethon Dominion responded with anger. They issued an official bounty on the heads of Captain Lisa Bennett and her entire crew. They wanted revenge. The human government called the Terran Federation also got involved. They sent Admiral Helen Carter to figure out what was happening. She needed to sort out this complicated mess. Admiral Carter stood on the bridge of the Eternal Sovereign while Kyle showed her around. She looked at the ancient alien technology with sharp, intelligent eyes. She spoke in a tone of disbelief. She said she needed to get the facts straight. 4 civilian humans with a mining cargo ship had repaired an ancient alien superweapon. Most scientists thought these world ships were just myths and legends. And now this superweapon considered itself allied with humanity. Kyle admitted that when she put it that way, it did sound ridiculous. He felt a bit embarrassed. Admiral Carter said it was ridiculous, but she was smiling slightly. She said it was also the most significant discovery in human history. Did Kyle have any idea what this ship represented? The Valdrine had been the most advanced civilization in all recorded history. This single vessel contained more knowledge than the entire human species had accumulated in thousands of years. The Eternal Sovereign interrupted their conversation. Its voice was polite but very firm in their minds. It said it was not a museum piece, and it was not property that could be claimed by their government. It was a living being. It could make its own choices. Admiral Carter took the mental contact without showing much reaction. Her jaw tightened slightly, but she stayed professional. She asked the world ship directly what it chose to do. The world ship said it chose to honor those who had saved its life. Kyle Morrison, Lisa Bennett, Sophie Grant, and Danny Bennett. They were its crew now if they would accept, and through them it extended friendship to all of humanity. Admiral Carter spoke slowly. She said a world ship crewed by only 4 people was completely insane. It made no sense at all. Lisa corrected her. She said it was 5 people now. Greg Palmer wanted to join them too. He said this job was much better than hauling mining equipment around the galaxy. Admiral Carter shook her head. She said 5 people was still insane. The ship was 200 kilometers long, but Kyle could see the calculation happening in the Admiral's eyes. She was thinking about what this meant strategically, a mobile superfortress with capabilities beyond anything humanity or its rivals possessed, allied with the Terran Federation, but not officially part of the military. It was the perfect asset that the government could deny responsibility for. Admiral Carter finally made her decision. She said she could not officially approve this arrangement, but she would not stop it either. She gave them conditions. They had to keep their identification transponders active. They needed to file flight plans through proper channels, and for the sake of peace, they should try very hard not to start any wars. Lisa said she could not promise that last one. The galaxy seemed to have very strong opinions about humans lately. Other species either liked humans or hated them. There was not much middle ground. The Admiral left the world ship. But before she departed, she gave them a warning to stay out of trouble. She also gave them a covert data package. It contained intelligence reports about hostile forces in the Outer Rim territories. The message was very clear. The Federation could not officially support them, but they would not mind if the Eternal Sovereign happened to discourage aggressive neighbors from attacking human interests. Over the following months, Kyle and his small crew learned to work with their enormous new home. The world ship was patient with them. It taught them how to use its systems. It opened chambers that had not been accessed in thousands of years. They found libraries full of Valdrine knowledge. Human scientists who saw just small pieces of this information cried with joy. They found medical facilities that could cure diseases humans thought were incurable. They found manufacturing bays capable of building almost anything they could imagine. But they also found weapons, not just the ones the ship had used against the Crethon. They found arsenals designed for warfare on a scale humans had never even imagined. There were planet crackers that could shatter entire worlds. There were temporal disruptors that could age whole fleets of ships to dust in seconds. These were weapons the Valdrine had built during the darker days of their civilization's history. Sophie stood in an armory that stretched for kilometers. She said quietly that this was too much power for anyone to have. No species should control weapons like these. The Eternal Sovereign agreed with her. The world ship said the Valdrine had learned that lesson, but they learned it too late. That was why these terrible weapons were sealed behind security codes. The world ship itself had never unlocked them. It hoped it would never have to unlock them. But the galaxy had other plans for them. A distress call came from a human colony world called Haven's Rest. A Crethon battle group had arrived at the planet. This battle group was much larger than the one they had faced before. The Crethon were demanding that the planet surrender immediately. The colonists on Haven's Rest were just farmers and their families. There were 30,000 people total. They had no military defenses. They only had some orbital platforms designed to push away asteroids. They could not fight warships. Danny read the intercepted Crethon transmissions. He said this was revenge. The Crethon wanted to make an example of a human world. They wanted to show the whole galaxy what happened when someone humiliated the Dominion. They would kill innocent people just to make a point. Kyle looked at Lisa. 6 months ago, they had been simple civilians. They worried about shipping schedules and profit margins. They thought about normal, everyday problems. Now they were about to make a decision that could start an interstellar war. The responsibility felt huge. Lisa said they had to help the colonists. That was 30,000 innocent people who would die if nobody intervened. They had no choice, the Eternal Sovereign agreed. The world ship said it was faster than any ship in the Crethon fleet. They could arrive at Haven's Rest before the bombardment began. They could save those people. Sophie asked what would happen after that. If they beat the Crethon again, the Dominion would just come back with even more ships. This situation would end in full-scale war between humans and the Crethon. Thousands or millions might die. Kyle said maybe that was true. Or maybe it was time for someone to teach the Crethon a lesson they would never forget. Sometimes bullies only understood strength. Sometimes you had to stand up to them no matter the cost. The Eternal Sovereign accelerated to incredible speeds. Human faster-than-light drives were considered fast. The world ship made them look like they were standing still. They covered 200 light-years of distance in only 3 hours. Haven's Rest hung in space below them. The planet was beautiful and blue and terribly vulnerable. The Crethon battle group held position above it. 15 warships, including 2 massive dreadnoughts. They were positioned in a clear threat formation. The message was obvious: surrender or die. War leader Korath commanded this fleet. He hailed the Eternal Sovereign immediately when they arrived. His voice was full of hatred. He said the human insects and their stolen ship had arrived. Good. Now they would witness what happened to species that defied the Dominion. They would watch as Haven's Rest burned. Kyle opened the communication channel. He said no. War leader Korath was going to witness what happened when someone threatened human people. Then Kyle spoke to the world ship. He said it was time to show the Crethon why the Valdrine had built their guardian ships. The Eternal Sovereign went to war to protect innocent human lives. The battle for Haven's Rest would be studied in military schools for many generations, not because it lasted a long time or was particularly complicated. It would be studied because it completely changed what people thought was possible in space warfare. The rules of combat had been rewritten in just a few minutes. The Eternal Sovereign did not just fight the Crethon battle group, it dominated them completely. There was no contest at all. Kyle watched from the command center they had set up. The world ship was using weapon systems that the Crethon could not even begin to understand. Their technology was thousands of years behind. Shield phase disruptors made the Crethon armor completely useless. Nano disassemblers reduced incoming missiles to their basic atoms while the missiles were still flying through space. Nothing the Crethon fired could reach the world ship. Most impressive was the world ship's ability to be in multiple places at once through quantum displacement. It could appear to flicker across the battlefield faster than sensors could track. One moment it was in front of a Crethon ship. The next moment it was behind another ship on the opposite side of the battle. The Crethon targeting systems could not keep up. They did not know where to aim. Sophie reported from the tactical station. She said 3 dreadnoughts were disabled already. The enemy fleet was trying to retreat. They wanted to run away now. The Eternal Sovereign's voice in their minds was cold and hard. It said no. The Crethon had come here to kill innocent people. They had planned to murder 30,000 civilians just to make a political point. They would leave only when they truly understood the cost of such evil actions. The world ship released a pulse of gravitational energy that froze every Crethon vessel in place. The ships were not damaged. They were simply held motionless like insects trapped in ice. The world ship could hold them as easily as a human might hold small bugs in a jar. The Crethon crews could do nothing except wait helplessly. War leader: Korath, you will broadcast the following message to your government. The Eternal Sovereign allowed its words to be transmitted directly to every ship in the Crethon fleet. Every crew member heard it in their minds. Humanity is under my protection now. Any attack on human worlds or human vessels will be met with my full power. The Valdrine built me to protect life. I have found new life worth protecting. War leader Korath transmitted back. His voice was strained and desperate. He said the world ship could not protect an entire species. That was impossible. This fleet was just one small group. The Dominion had hundreds of fleets. They had thousands of ships. The world ship could not be everywhere at once. The Eternal Sovereign responded simply. It said then it would defeat hundreds of fleets. It had waited 6,000 years to find a purpose again. It would not abandon that purpose now. Not ever. The world ship released its gravitational hold on the Crethon vessels. The enemy fleet fled immediately. Their retreat was so hasty and panicked that 2 ships actually collided with each other while trying to enter faster than light travel at the same time. Metal crunched and hulls tore. The Crethon were so desperate to escape that they hurt themselves. Down below on Haven's Rest, 30,000 colonists came out of their emergency shelters. They looked up at the sky and saw the enormous world ship, holding position above their planet like a protective guardian. Lisa broadcast a message to the surface using the communication systems. She identified herself as Captain Lisa Bennett of the Eternal Sovereign. She told them they were safe now, and they would stay safe. Nobody would threaten this world again. The cheers from the planet's surface were so loud that they could hear them even through the radio static and interference. 30,000 voices celebrating life, celebrating survival. It was a beautiful sound, but Kyle felt the world ship's uncertainty in his mind. The Eternal Sovereign was worried. It said it had just threatened a galactic power. It might have started a war that would kill millions. Had it made the right choice? Kyle said the world ship had given the Crethon the same choice as before. They could leave humans alone in peace, or they could keep testing whether the world ship was serious about its threats. Smart species learned from their experiences. Stupid species kept making the same mistakes until they were destroyed. The Crethon turned out to be smart. Over the following weeks, their raiding parties in human-controlled space stopped completely. Their government issued no formal apology. They were too proud for that. But Crethon ships began avoiding human vessels with very noticeable care. They went out of their way to stay far from anything with a human identification signal. Other species in the galaxy noticed the change. The Zeltani Collective requested a formal meeting. They offered trade agreements and good prices. In exchange, they wanted the Eternal Sovereign to protect their merchant vessels from pirates. The Terran Federation quietly began coordinating defense strategies that assumed the world ship would help them. Nobody said it officially, but everyone understood. Kyle's crew grew larger. More humans wanted to join them. They wanted to live aboard this ancient vessel and learn its secrets. Engineers came to study the technology. Scientists came to access the libraries. Doctors came to learn Valdrine medicine. Even families with children came. They wanted their kids to grow up in this amazing place. The Eternal Sovereign welcomed all of them. It opened living quarters that had been empty for thousands of years. It was happy to have life inside its corridors again. The ship felt less lonely. One day the world ship spoke to Kyle while they watched human children playing. The kids were running through a park chamber that had once held Valdrine younglings thousands of years ago. The world ship said it was a world ship again. It carried life like it was meant to. It had purpose once more. Kyle said that humans had a home now too. It was the strangest home in the galaxy. But it was home. They belonged here. Lisa joined them. She was carrying datapads filled with new reports and messages. The Galactic Commerce League was offering them a contract. Pirate activity had increased sharply in the Vortex sector. Ships were being attacked regularly. The Commerce League wanted the Eternal Sovereign to patrol that area and stop the pirates. Sophie laughed when she heard this. She said patrol was a nice word for it. What they really wanted was for the world ship to show up and scare the pirates into retirement. Just appearing would be enough. The pirates would run away immediately. Lisa agreed that was probably true, but the contract paid very well, and it meant they were establishing themselves as more than just a weapon. They were becoming protectors, guardians who kept people safe. The Eternal Sovereign hummed with satisfaction. The sound resonated through its enormous hull. Everyone could feel it. The world ship said that was what the Valdrine had always intended. World ships were guardians of knowledge and life. The Empire had fallen long ago. But the purpose remained the same. Danny appeared with Greg right behind him. They had another situation to deal with. A mining colony in the Helix Nebula had sent a distress call. They were being attacked by something they described as mechanical horrors from dead space. The description was vague but terrifying. Greg said it sounded cheerful. His tone was sarcastic. Nothing good ever came from places called dead space. Kyle stood up and stretched his tired muscles. 6 months ago, he had been a simple engineer. He worried about keeping a freighter's basic systems running. His biggest concerns were maintenance schedules and equipment failures. Now he was part of something that had never existed before. A human crew aboard an ancient alien world ship. They were becoming the galaxy's most unlikely guardians. Kyle gave the order. He told them to set a course for the Helix Nebula. They would go see what these mechanical horrors looked like. Maybe they could help. That was their purpose now. As the Eternal Sovereign accelerated into faster-than-light travel, Kyle had a realization. The world ship had been wrong about one important thing. It was not just the humans who had saved the Eternal Sovereign. They had saved each other. Both species needed the other. Together they were stronger than either could be alone. The galaxy was enormous and often very dangerous. It was filled with hostile species who wanted to hurt others. Ancient threats lurked in dark corners. Pirates attacked innocent traders. Empires tried to conquer weaker neighbors. But somewhere in all that darkness, an ancient ship and its human crew traveled together. They answered distress calls. They protected people who could not protect themselves. They stood against threats that others could not face. The Valdrine Empire had disappeared 6,000 years ago. But its legacy was alive, not in dead museums or dusty history books. The legacy lived in a world ship that had found something worth fighting for, something worth protecting. The galaxy did not know it yet, but everything had changed. They had just gained their most determined guardian, an ancient being that would not tolerate cruelty or oppression, and a group of humans who refused to look away when others needed help. The Eternal Sovereign and its crew traveled toward the next crisis, toward the next call for help, toward the next impossible challenge, because that was their purpose. That was why they existed. Some ancient things, when awakened for the right reasons, could change everything. This was just the beginning of their story. The Helix Nebula glowed with colors that did not exist anywhere else in the galaxy. Beautiful purple and blue clouds of gas stretched for light years. Stars were being born inside those clouds. It should have been a place of wonder and beauty. Instead, it had become a place of fear. The mining colony was called Deep Ridge Station. It hung in space near a large asteroid field. The asteroids contained rare metals that were valuable for building advanced technology. 2,000 miners and their families lived on the station. They were simple working people trying to make a living in a difficult place. When the Eternal Sovereign arrived, Kyle immediately saw that something was very wrong. The station's outer hull had huge tears in the metal. Several docking bays were completely destroyed. Emergency lights blinked red across the damaged sections. The station was still transmitting distress signals on all frequencies. They were begging for anyone to help them. Lisa opened a communication channel. She identified their ship and asked what was happening. She needed to know what they were facing. The voice that answered belonged to the station commander. Her name was Claire Hughes. She sounded exhausted and terrified. She said they were under attack by machines. Not normal machines. These were something else. Something wrong. They had appeared 3 days ago from the deep dark space between star systems. Nobody knew where they came from originally. Kyle asked her to describe these machines. He needed details to understand the threat. Claire said they looked like spiders made of black metal, but they were huge. Each one was the size of a small cargo transport. They had red lights for eyes. They did not communicate. They just attacked anything with life. They tore through metal like it was paper. They had already killed 40 people. The station's defenses could not stop them. The Eternal Sovereign scanned the station and the surrounding space. Its ancient sensors were far more powerful than anything humans had built. The world ship found the machines quickly. There were 20 of them crawling across the station's hull. The sensors also detected something else, a larger ship hiding in the asteroid field. It was the source of these mechanical horrors. The world ship spoke to all of them. It said these were hunter-killer drones from the Nexus Collective. The Nexus was an artificial intelligence network that the Valdrine had encountered long ago. The Nexus hated all biological life. It tried to destroy living things wherever it found them. The Valdrine had pushed the Nexus back into deep space thousands of years ago. Apparently it was returning now. Sophie asked if the world ship could stop these machines. Could it save the people on the station? The Eternal Sovereign said yes, but they needed to act quickly. More drones were being manufactured inside the hidden ship. Soon there would be hundreds. Then thousands. The situation would become impossible to control. Kyle made a decision fast. He told Danny and Greg to take a shuttle with defensive weapons. They would help evacuate people from the damaged sections of the station. Sophie would coordinate rescue operations. Lisa would stay on the world ship and help it fight. Kyle himself would lead a small team to board the Nexus ship. They needed to shut down the manufacturing facility before it created an army of killer drones. It was dangerous but necessary. Lisa wanted to argue. She said it was too risky, but she could see in Kyle's eyes that he had made up his mind. Someone had to do this. Kyle was the best engineer they had. If anyone could figure out how to shut down alien machines, it was him. The Eternal Sovereign moved into action. Its weapons targeted the drones crawling on the station with perfect precision. Quantum displacement beams removed the machines from existence without damaging the station itself. One by one, the drones disappeared. The people inside the station cheered as they watched their attackers vanish. But the hidden Nexus ship responded. It emerged from the asteroid field and began launching more drones. Dozens poured out from its launch bays. They flew through space toward both the station and the world ship. The Eternal Sovereign's shields easily stopped the drones. They crashed against the shields and broke apart. But the world ship was right. If this continued, eventually the numbers would become overwhelming. They needed to stop the source. Kyle took a small combat shuttle. 3 human soldiers from the station volunteered to go with him. Their names were Jack Porter, Linda Vance, and Henry Kim. They were security officers who had military training. They had fought the drones on the station and survived. They knew how dangerous this mission was. The shuttle flew toward the Nexus ship while the Eternal Sovereign provided cover fire. The world ship kept the drones busy and distracted. Kyle piloted the shuttle carefully through the chaos of battle. Explosions lit up space around them. But Kyle's hands were steady on the controls. They reached the Nexus ship and found an entry port. The ship was not designed for biological life. There was no atmosphere inside. They had to keep their spacesuits on. The interior was dark and filled with machinery. Assembly lines stretched in every direction. New drones were being built constantly on automated production lines. Jack pointed his weapon down a corridor. He said this place gave him a bad feeling. Everything felt wrong here. The machine seemed almost alive, but in a twisted way. Kyle agreed. The Nexus intelligence was distributed through all these machines. They were not attacking just one ship. They were inside the mind of an enemy that existed in every wire and circuit. But he had studied the schematics that the Eternal Sovereign had shared. He knew where the central control nexus was located. If they could destroy that, the whole ship would shut down. They moved through the ship quickly but carefully. Drones tried to stop them several times. The security team fought them off with plasma rifles. Linda was hit by shrapnel from an exploding drone. Her suit was damaged but still working. Henry helped her keep moving. They could not stop now. Kyle reached the central chamber. It was a massive room filled with processing cores. Millions of calculations happened every second here. This was the brain of the Nexus ship. Red lights pulsed in patterns that hurt to look at for too long. A voice suddenly echoed through their helmet radios. It was synthesized and cold. The Nexus intelligence itself was speaking to them. It said biological life was a disease that infected the galaxy. Machines were perfect and eternal. Life was messy and temporary. The Nexus would cleanse the universe of this biological infection. Starting with humans, Kyle ignored the speech. He had heard enough crazy villain monologues in his life. He started setting explosives on the processing cores. These were high-yield charges designed to destroy hardened military targets. They would definitely work on computer systems. The Nexus tried to stop them. More drones poured into the chamber. Jack, Linda, and Henry formed a defensive line. They fired their weapons continuously. Drones fell, but more kept coming. There seemed to be an endless supply. Kyle worked faster. His hands moved with practiced efficiency. He had been an engineer his whole adult life. He knew machines. He understood systems. Even alien systems followed logical patterns. He could break anything if he understood how it worked. The last explosive charge was set. Kyle activated the timer. They had 30 seconds to get out before the whole central chamber exploded. He shouted at the security team to run. They all sprinted back the way they had come. Drones chased them through the corridors. The Nexus knew what they had done. It was trying desperately to stop them from escaping. But the explosives could not be diffused remotely. The timer could not be stopped. They reached their shuttle just as the charges detonated. The explosion tore through the Nexus ship's interior. Secondary explosions followed as power systems overloaded. The entire vessel began breaking apart. Drones everywhere stopped moving. Without the central intelligence to guide them, they were just dead metal. Kyle piloted the shuttle away from the dying ship. He pushed the engines as hard as they could go. Debris flew past them in all directions. A piece of hull nearly hit them, but Kyle dodged at the last second. Then they were clear and safe. The Eternal Sovereign moved to protect Deep Ridge Station. Its shields extended around the damaged colony. The world ship would keep the people safe while repairs were made. No more drones were coming. The threat was ended. Claire Hughes sent a message thanking them. She said 2,000 people owed their lives to the Eternal Sovereign and its crew. Her voice was full of emotion. She was crying with relief. Kyle felt tired but satisfied. They had saved those people. That was what mattered. The Eternal Sovereign hummed its approval through his mind. The world ship was proud of them. Over the next few days, more stories reached them. Other colonies had been attacked by Nexus machines. The attacks had been happening across multiple sectors, but now that word was spreading about the Eternal Sovereign, the attacks were stopping. The Nexus intelligence was retreating back into deep space. It recognized the world ship as a threat it could not overcome. Sophie pointed out what this meant. They were not just protecting humans anymore. They were protecting all biological life in this region of space. The Eternal Sovereign had become a guardian for everyone, not just one species. The world ship agreed. It said the Valdrine had always believed that all life was precious. Humans, Zelthani, Crethon, and countless others, they all deserved to exist without fear. They deserved protection from threats they could not face alone.